Welcome to the Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva, and today we're going to get some insight into university information. My guest today is Clarissa West-White. She is from Bethune-Cookman University, and she is the university archivist and FAR. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, so usually I start my guests where they went to college. So where'd you go to school?
So I attended the Florida State University in Tallahassee, Florida.
Ah, fantastic.
Yeah.
So I want to go back in time before we get into what you're actually doing. In high school, when did you start thinking about going to college? Was it freshman year of high school, senior year of high school? When did it all begin for you?
My mom is an elementary school teacher. She retired after close to 40 years of service. And so I knew I was going to college probably when I could talk and walk. I mean, it wasn't ever a thing you could not, it was just as secondary as breathing. You were going. So you just need to figure out where. And even that had parameters. She's a graduate of Florida A&M University in Tallahassee, one of the premier, because she would kill me if I didn't say it, HBCUs in the country. And so she was like, oh, you're going to be a Rattler. And it didn't work out quite that way. So I just I ended up at the university across the tracks. That's kind of how it happened. But through middle school, high school, because I knew I was going somewhere out of those two, I tried to get involved in camps, football games, which is probably how I first started my love of sports. Because she would, I just went to all and everything family. So football, tailgates, and then my dad also loved sports. So, my other love and passion includes the Pittsburgh Steelers. I've been a fan since, I tell people I was 7, so that was like 1970-something. And I've loved them ever since. And so because I'm in Florida and a native to Florida, people will always ask, because my family, everyone in the house, you must love the Steelers. You can, and the Seminoles. You can play around with anyone else, but you can't play with those. And so when we're around town, people are like, oh, so you're from Pittsburgh? Because, a lot of people in our little city are from everywhere else. So, very few native Floridians. And so they're like, oh, you're from Pittsburgh. And I'm like, no, I'm native to Florida. And they're like, you don't like any of your teams? And I'm like, no. I will go to them when Pittsburgh comes to Florida. So that's how I get to those. But yeah, so college wasn't really an option. It wasn't.
So tell me, was the Florida State University the only school you picked, or were there other schools to pick
I did
from?
do a summer program at University of Florida. I did not really. It didn't work for me. It just didn't feel right. Florida State, I must say, just kind of felt like the place to go. It felt like home, and I had been there probably starting since the summer of my 10th grade year. I had been there every summer. And so, I knew people, I knew some faculty, and the warmth of the city. And, I'm only 30 minutes from home. Mm-hmm. So, if I need to, get away, I could just catch a ride home, because so many people in my hometown worked in Tallahassee. Several even at the university attended my church. And so if I needed something from home, or if I needed to just see a familiar face, all that was in one place.
So tell me, you're at the University, Florida State, and what's the school like? What do you think of it?
I've always loved Florida State. I've taught at 3 of the 4 historically Black colleges in Florida, but I still, I understand their importance. I think everyone should definitely have that experience one way or the other. If you can't attend, definitely go work for one. But Florida State just holds a special place. It just, the canopies, the trees, the lawn, the grass. I mean, you can smell the cut grass. I mean, because I'm a country girl at heart. And so just to have some of those things that reminded me of my country upbringing, it was just really, I don't know, the teachers were always warm. welcoming. If you had issues, you can go talk to them. I was an English major. Well, I started off in business, but I switched to English. And my professors just really, could spend hours talking about something I wrote, as opposed to something in a book. So it made it very personal. And because I got all my degrees from there, by the time I left, there's not very few professors at that time I did not know. Because I got my undergrad, my master's, my PhD, and I went back for an information degree in 2018-19. So, yeah.
So now you graduate from there. How does one graduate from Florida State University and become a university archivist?
I don't know. So I'm just leaning on my faith a lot because I have no idea. I always tell people I have no idea how I got here.
There had to be a road. There had to be graduated.
So initially, when I first graduated my master's, I taught back home. So I went back home to my home county and I taught English there. And then I figured something was missing, and so I thought about training the future cadre of English education teachers. And so I went and got that degree thinking I was going to do that. And I did that for a couple of years. And because I had so many hours, because I went to the same institution, I would teach English and then I would also teach education courses. And, that was interesting. My first job took me to Miami-Dade, Florida, Miami, Killian Senior High, and then Florida Memorial. And then I came back to Tallahassee to FAMU. Then I went back to Florida Memorial. Then I came back to FAMU, and I left FAMU to go to Florida State to teach only education because by then, I don't know how many people you may know who teach English, but I would think they all probably have eye issues. I think after a while, 20 years of grading hundreds of papers, it just gets, I want to be able to see longer than this. So I switched only to education. And then I had a difficult pregnancy and ended up having to kind of take a leave for that young man. And when I started back getting into the world of work, my home county needed a media specialist. My mom, her last year of her elementary teaching, she ended up being the director of her library at her school, but she wasn't really into technology. So what I did my final year of my graduate program was help her run the library, that she was the librarian at the St. John Elementary. And so fast forward, I had a student at Bethune-Cookman because I eventually found my way there to teach English. And my student had an internship in the library, and I went to see her presentation of what she learned. And in talking with the dean of the library, Dr. Yeomans, she said, "Oh, you seen something I said." And she said, "Oh, you worked in the library before?" I said, "Yeah, I had my mom direct our library." And she said, "We have a grant that will help you get your degree if you're interested in coming over to the library." Well, at the time, I was the chair of the English department. And so I was like, I don't know about that. I'm not sure. But then I decided to not be chair and return to just teaching English. And then I was like, you know what? Why not the library? I mean, it seemed like a good place to help with research because in teaching English, I found that was a lot of what students had issues with. They'll cite a source, and yes, you cited something, but that's not factual. So it was like teaching them the skills of how to find research that has some teeth to it and that they could then use to build their own research agenda. And so I was like, that's being missed in comp courses, So I thought that the library would give me that chance to do that for the university. So I transferred over to the library where I was the reference librarian. And then last May, the assistant archivist took a job at Howard. And so the dean and her administrative admin, who happens to be the granddaughter of the school's founder, recommended that I become the archivist. And so she asked me would I be interested. And
what does an actual archivist do?
So we protect and care for, in our instance, the papers and legacy of the founder. Her home is on our campus, so we have a museum. It's under renovation right now, but and we just make sure that her papers are accessible to the public, and that we just know what we have, and that we keep it safe for future generations, so that beyond her lifespan, of course, this could definitely propel other people's research. And so we also keep things because she was a traveler, so she has collections of African artifacts. We have those. We also have the papers of alumni. We have papers of the Attica prison riot. We have that. So we gather collections and just maintain and preserve them.
Wow. Now tell me a little bit about the university.
So the university was founded in 1904 by Mary Jane McLeod Bethune. She's from South Carolina. She was the last, she was 15 of 17 children, the last one born before slavery ended. And dates are not my thing, so I'm not a historian. But she founded the school because she knew that the Flagler Railroad was working in the area, and that those workers' children needed educating. So she started school for girls, and she had 5 girls and her son, Albert. And she started in Daytona Beach. She had $1.50 because it's our famous saying is she had 5 girls, her son, that we had to make sure people remember, $1.50 and faith. And so she rented a place to stay, and she was able to get what was then the county's dump. And that's where she started her school.
Well, we're coming to the end of our show.
Okay.
And usually I ask my guests what advice you want to give to families and their sons and daughters that might want to come to the university. What advice you want to give them?
Oh, definitely. Come knowing that we're a small school. And because of that, we have small class sizes. Our faculty members generally, on average, have been there at least a decade. So you have people who are committed to not only the city, but to the legacy of Dr. Bethune. We talk about her often using present tense because she seems to always still be around. She is buried on campus, so you can see her home and her gravesite. And we know that she gave her life because she was ill. She had a lot, she was sick. And she was still, even through her sickness, reach out to people for donations. She was a really good marketing person, a fundraiser. And so we just try to make sure we do what she would want us to do for anybody's child, which is nurture, help them learn to advocate for themselves, and to graduate, to be great citizens.
Great. Well, thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thank you.
Yeah. So you've been watching The Secrets of College Planning. I'm your host, Anthony Uva. Until next time.